situation, the reality that's been happening the last several years. One of the issues that we've seen is that we have an EDC that's out there trying to solicit business into the community. We have a group, and up until very recently, we've not had a full-time economic development coordinator who's been able to do the marketing and do some of the outreach within the community. That's been somewhat of a tragedy, to be honest with you. In times when you don't have a lot of economic development opportunities is the time you need to have an economic development person in place, and unfortunately that wasn't the case. But one of the things that we're looking for as council members and frankly as a city government, I think, would be that we would see deliverables. We're talking about deliverables, we're closing the feedback loop, which means that we have a contract, we have certain performance objectives, certain what would be considered was it PIP, performance improvement plan objectives, and we want to be able to measure this. We want to be able to quantify performance, quantify how things are run, and we're hoping that in re-upping with Johnson County, Southwest Johnson County, you see that we'd be able to get some of those measurements, some of those deliverables, closing the feedback loop, so we can move forward and maybe increase our performance in certain areas. So, what would be examples of this that you could share with us this evening? I just want to see what we can do in terms of getting that document, getting that information, so that we can start to help to facilitate and better make those particular departments run better and have that cooperation that you're talking about.
Well, one thing that I would recommend is that the city, the mayor, for example, is part of our organization, and that sets of goals. We have an ex officio position that could be city administrator, could be the community development director. I think that's important to have that person involved in the overall organization and the development of the goals and strategic objectives. I think the communication on a regular basis between that one person. But the other is to have the communication available from you. I need to know what you want. I need to know what you're looking for. We're talking about target industries. Is it to have a new area to develop a business park? Is it to be more involved in one or more of the types of business development that's going on in the metro or the state? I can help get the local person involved in that. Excuse me, the corridor, the corridor for science up on K10, the animal health corridor. If that's something that we want to look at, fine. Let's sit down, develop a strategy, and determine where we can be in that program.
I'm sorry. One last follow-up, real quick. Key performance indicators is really what I was thinking of. What are our metrics? What's our measurables in terms of how we're performing versus baseline? What is our baseline? Are we expecting to put a goal of bringing, let's say, 50 new businesses into our community on a monthly basis? And I know that that's not necessarily, and I'm just throwing a number out there. What I'm saying is that's what I'm kind of looking for in terms of key performance indicators as to how to measure progress versus a baseline or versus projections. You're saying there's a lot of activity. You got 38 cases that you've got open, I heard. How many of those are on path to close? What's our close rate? That's what I'm looking for. And really that's what's about closing the feedback loop and getting us to a position where we can actually determine progress or determine effectiveness in those areas.
Well, I think we can develop that number, and that's fine. But one of the issues I have with going out and saying that okay, we're going to bring in 10 new businesses next year. Well, if we say that, then we have to drill down and say, okay, those have to be X type of business. They have to be have this many employees or whatever, and that's fine. We'll try to figure that out. But I think the more measurable is how are we getting into the right areas? Are we developing a plan to get involved in the corridor? Are we developing the contacts necessary to have those leads come to us? Are we, if our goal is to get office, are we talking to the right people?
Mhm.
So I think those goals will result in the new business development. If there's a goal as far as businesses, we can talk about how we could shape that, but I think more importantly, it's how do we get in a position to be successful.
Tom, I think last year I asked you probably the same question about the makeup of the revenue that comes in to your organization. What percent is Gardner's share of the total? You recall?
It's about, it depends on if we're talking 12,500 or 25,000, but
Let's just go annually to 25,000.
25,000. It's just under 10%.
And so we're the largest contributor.
No,
We're not. And who would be the largest?
the Air Center
Oh,
at about half.
so they contribute 50?
Mhm.
Okay. And then who's next?
It would be between the city of Gardner and the city of Edgerton.
So Edgerton kicks in 25 also?
Mhm.
And then businesses,
About 60 some.
there's 60,000
Mhm.
collectively. And again, I just got to keep going back to how do you reconcile that income with who you represent? And of course, staying with the real
Because,
estate.
quite frankly, because we're allowed to by the Air Center recognizes the benefit of having an area-wide effort. Their workforce, a lot of their amenities are in this area. So it's their recognition that it is not just what's happening out there, but here.
So how do you, I mean, who's your boss then, I guess?
My board.
Of the board?
Hmm?
I guess, how do you keep everything, so that Gardner gets the same opportunities as Edgerton, and that the
We have a-
airport board isn't
Okay.
their the greatest
Yeah.
influence since it contributes the most money? How do you keep all that separate?
Because my job, and they understand it, is to try to help make this area attractive, be part of the team that's going to bring in opportunities, and they'll get their share. I don't take my day and say, okay, I'm going to be 25% over here and 20 over here and 10 over here. Like most business people, your income comes from different areas. You do have to pay attention to all your major areas, and part of it is having a contact at each major member. So if there is a feeling that, we need to have more attention, we can discuss that.
Unfortunately, due to time constraints, we're going to have to close the work session. Obviously, this is something that's going to require further discussion on our end, and having attended the EDC board members' meeting last week, I think that they're looking for input from us and maybe fine-tuning of the agreement before they're ready to move forward with signing something as well. But I would like to see this show up on agendas, whether it's regular council meetings or work sessions, probably until we reach some wrap-up on this particular subject.
I'm inclined to make a decision sooner rather than later on this.
Thank you. We would too.
Yeah.
All right.
So are we removing it from the agenda?
I was going to get to that.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, Tom.
thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
All right. The City of Gardner, Kansas City Council will come to order. Please stand and join us with the Pledge of Allegiance.